Hey, good afternoon, everyone. So IPPS, not to be confused with Treasury IPP. So government is just so boring with their acronyms. It is what it is. So we're the invoice payment processing system. So just a little bit about me. I've been with the government for about 17 years. I did some time with Department of Labor, IRS, and then 2001 since FSC. So Anna alluded to it just a little bit earlier that at the FSC, we're a franchise fund. We do commercial operations, and that's what I'm over, the accounts payable, accounts receivable, and mailroom operations. So primarily we handle VA customers. I think you saw that on the slide too, 99% VA and 1% other government agencies. So the nice thing about being a franchise fund is we get to go to forums like this, we get to tell our stories. We can always do business with other government agencies, or we can just collaborate. So what that 1% doesn't show is that we also collaborate with other agencies, tell them about our experiences with Pega or e-invoicing solutions, and still help them along as well. So she said we did about 1.4 million invoices at a $14 billion spend. That's a decent amount of invoices. We centralized VA invoices probably back in 2006. And so as a franchise fund, we're able to buy new technology here and there to do a little job better, faster, cheaper type of thing for VA. So we have 360 VA facilities nationwide that these invoices are coming in. Each one did things a little bit differently. So centralization was, a little bit of a challenge, but we made it through. A staggering number was VA at the time was paying $125 interest per million for all their invoices. So when we took the invoices on, we had some technology at the time. If you did one payable person at each station, right, that's 360 FTE that you're paying to make these, 1.4 million invoices. We were able to do that originally back in the 2006 timeframe with about 30 to 40-ish FTE and contractors to get these out the door. And then we reduced the interest per million down to about in the tens versus the hundreds. So we were at the 20, 30 million interest per million mark. So we did a little bit better job with less personnel, right? That's one of the reasons, it's where technology comes in handy to help us streamline processes. Over the years, as we've grown a little bit and advanced more into Pega solutions, the good news now is last year's interest per million was down to about 17, and we're doing it with about 12 personnel, and they're not even working full-time on making payments through. So they do other things like duplicate checks and things of that nature. So between Pega solutions and our e-invoicing processes, we've really been able to speed up how VA is approaching paying our vendors timely, right? Anna said, we're not directly connected with veteran care, but we're paying these vendors who are providing these goods and these services to the hospitals so these hospitals can take care of the veterans. So, accounting is the boring stuff. That's what we do. We're on the back end, accounts payable, accounts receivable, not veteran facing like the hospitals, but we do play an integral role to make sure that the veterans are being cared for. So a lot of people ask us about IPPS. We started in about 2012. And it took us about 2 years to go live. VA is, it's kind of a huge organization. We were building out, and then kind of the reason it took 2 years, normally Pega builds go much, much quicker. IT said, hey, we're going to move into a service-oriented architecture as we were kind of building out Pega. So that it put a little snafu into it. But overall, through our service-oriented architecture, we kind of have enterprise-wide solutions with reuse with other Pega applications. Our medical claims divisions use Pega. We have a financial transaction service, so we can make these service calls out there to make payment files, call up images for our invoices, and we can share that through the other departments at FSC, as well as our station customers. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get into the actual IPPS system. So if the AV guy, if he can switch this monitor up here, and then I have a developer in Austin. He's going to drive for us today. So we'll go ahead and click that off here. And if you could take us to the single sign-on screen, the log-on screen, please. Make sure we have our connection. There we go. So as we were developing IPPS with our station customers, we kind of reached out to them. Pega, the great thing about Pega is we get to build quickly, show them UIs quickly, and collaborate with our customers. In our previous system, they had a separate username and password. So our customers go, hey, we want to get rid of this username and password thing. We're tired, we have to memorize 8 different usernames and passwords or more with all the systems they log into. So we said, hey, no problem. We'll make it single sign-on. So as long as you're in the network, we'll have a service that reads your network ID, and you can get access to IPPS. So they sign their life away by accepting the wonderful VA security standards, and they click agree to get on the system. Now this UI right here, it looks a little bit busy, but this is for our super users there out in the field. Again, our customers, we approached them to ask them what was easier for them. Just to give you a little bit of history on that, IPPS did replace 3 VA legacy systems. What it doesn't replace is the legacy people that work there at VA. So I'm sure you don't have any legacy people in your organizations that think change is terrible and hate to move on. So one of the selling points, obviously, as Anna said, we had to be customer focused. We had to engage the customer throughout the development process to make sure that they were getting a product that they wanted. Otherwise they're still got people that are resistant to change. But overall, we've had a lot of good feedback from our customers about how this is making their job easier out there in the field station. I'll have Srini click on the dashboard real quick up top. So, reporting at VA, it was okay. They used reports from a lot of different legacy systems. I think I felt like I had to learn DOS or COBOL, as was mentioned a little earlier, when I looked at the systems that they had to go into. So IPPS is a huge consumer of data and databases so that we can show important reports to our customers at a glance. What we identify to our stations, and this is from a station customer portal, so I just want to be clear on that. So what's on the screen now is how our stations are interacting with us in the certification of invoices. We do have a separate backend that we use at the FSC to process through these business roles, but I kind of wanted to show our customer-facing portal today. So our customers still have a responsibility to certify their invoices timely. So we built these canned reports on the dashboard, high priority invoices. We identified those as invoices over $100,000, invoices that have a discount terms on them that need to be processed right away to meet the terms, things that are already potentially in interest-bearing status according to the Prompt Payment Act. Over to the right, we have an invoice status chart. And again, it gives you kind of the health of the organization on pie chart status. So the invoice status covers everything that's in that queue for that station to work. But if you click up on chart actions up there at the top and say show data, pie charts are great. It's a nice visual representation of it. But you can drill down, click on pending certification there, and really get to all the metadata that's associated with those transactions that are out there that are being represented visually in the chart area. So this is our test database. This is just all the test databases, test data that we have out there. So it gives them, vendor IDs, vendor names, how long it's been sitting out there, the age. They can export all this to Excel and get in contact with the appropriate personnel that need to take action. So that actually saved them a lot of time as the site administrators at these 360 facilities are trying to manage this workload. So we'll go ahead and close this out here. Another thing of interest to site administrators and of course the CFOs at the different facilities is, how is their station doing? Interest paid by month. So we captured all the interest calculations down here from daily feeds from our accounting system that we put into these reports. There's a little slider at the bottom. So we actually capture about 6 years worth of data for them, so they can actually see trending for about the past 6 years of how they're doing. If you hover over, it'll tell you the amount that you paid per month. And again, you can go into the chart actions and see the actual transactions that paid that interest. We actually have customers that aren't on IPPS. They work on more the medical claims side, but they thought that was kind of neat. So since we went ahead and downloaded the transactions into our database anyway, they can access this too and see their medical claims transactional interest per million data as well. And of course, discount earned by month. This is a trend that VA kind of monitors. We want to make sure that we're capturing our discounts that the vendors offer us. If we see that trending downward, is that because we're not paying timely? Is that because our contracting folks aren't getting the discounts that they used to get on with these vendors' contracts? So it's just something that keeps the CFOs informed of what's going on there at their particular station. Again, this was just what we considered important, or what our customers considered important to them from a dashboard perspective. In Pega 7, and we're on the Pega 7.1 platform right now. This dashboard is actually customizable. I think it can hold definitely more than 4 squares here. We only use 4 right now. I want to go down to monitor activity real quick down at the bottom. And so these are just other canned reports. And I just want to say Pega is very good at reporting and interfacing with our databases to get these reports. So there were some other reports that our customers said, hey, I thought this would be nice. Hey, I thought this would be nice. It's pretty easy for us to customize and put these reports out there for them so that they can understand, again, kind of the health of their station and where they're at in the stream of time and what they need to do to push these invoices through the system. Going back to process work, please, Srini. So again, from a certifying official perspective, again, this screen looks a little busy because this is our admin super user. From our regular user, the certifying official that we just want to get in and they need to push work through, all they really see is our station inquiry system button, our online invoice form button there on the right, and their work list. So again, we want to simplify it for the majority of the user base. So they get in, they know exactly what they need to do when they need to do it. As you can see under the My Work List, some of the metadata that we just display right away is we have our document locator number. That's just a smart number that we use. The first 3 digits represent the Julian day. The next digit represents the fiscal year. So that's kind of starts our receive date of when FSC received that invoice, whether it was through paper or electronic means. One of the dates that prompt payment is calculated off of. The other one will be the acceptance delivery date. Some metadata from our accounting system, fund control point. That's kind of how we assign these invoices to the users. The site admins pick fund control points for the certifying officials, just some sort of cost objects in our obligation tables, so that the users can only get the invoices that they need to see instead of seeing a giant bucket for their whole station. Of course, we list the amount over here, whether it's a discount, yes or no, the vendor name, and the appropriate status of the invoice. And of course, what we tell people is that look at the age column on the far right-hand side. Don't let anything get close to that 30-day mark. Make sure you get that out before interest starts accruing. Again, our wonderful test database. Hopefully, we don't have anything 904 days old. Interest stops accruing after 360 days anyway, so we have no incentive to pay this invoice. If you would click on the online invoice form button there, Srini. So by 2018, OMB said that we need to start receiving invoices in electronically. It's kind of a mandate that's out there. Right now, FSC is about 90% electronic. The only thing that we're not receiving in electronically currently are some HCFA forms that are not being paid as medical claims and going through pricers, but they're going through commercial operations. And that's more due to it's got to be sent to us, what do they call it, in an 837 EDI format, and I think we got a kickback in 835 to them. So we're still taking them in paper and scanning them. The other one is utility invoices, right? So utility invoices don't always fit that normal 810 format for commercial invoices. There's a lot more data on utility invoices that customers want to see, whether it's meter usage, line usage, things like that may not be captured in that 810 profile. So we're working with our EDI team and some of our customers out in the field that are managing these telecommunications and other utility type vendors out there. And we're building a profile called an 811 to capture all these other data elements. So we hope by next year at least we'll get telecoms and other utilities mandated and pushed through our system through an electronic means. We'll still worry about the 837, 835 medical claims a little bit later. What we do allow our customers to do, though, right, to avoid paper invoices and sending them down to us, is they can actually upload these forms or these invoices directly into our system here for payment. We actually have some business rules around that. So again, Pega is really awesome at business rules. So if you upload something, you can't certify it. That's one of the business rules that we have. It's kind of a segregation of duties. We don't want you just to upload something, willy-nilly. And then go and certify away. So we listed just some main form types. Srini's already selected the select form type up there in the upper right-hand column. That's not the end-all, be-all of VA forms. That's just a kind of a guide to see what we're getting in. Most people will choose others. We did take on a new form of payment process, the HISA payments. That's Home Improvement Structurals Act, I believe, for the disabled veterans. That's how they get some refunds for the structural improvements to their homes. So that was actually a new payment transaction that we took on a few months ago that we built into our IPPS. The stations usually receive those requests for reimbursements from the veterans first, and then instead of faxing it or mailing it down, they can just directly upload it into the system. We do ask them to fill out the metadata here, though. The purchase order number, that's our obligation. That just tells us where the money's coming from. They need to type in that person's tax ID, or if it's a veteran that's in our system, they need to type in that veteran's social security number so that we can reimburse them there. Of course, invoice number for Prompt Payment Act purposes, invoice date, and that date of service. And then they can just upload the image right away. And it takes about 2 minutes to run through all the business rules after they upload, and then it will be out there in someone's queue to certify that invoice. In the meantime, they also have the station inquiry system. We do give them confirmation on their online invoice submission form here. But we can go ahead and exit out of here. On the station inquiry system, we have the ability to query up data. That way they can track all the data that they have out there for their station. Most people will just go to invoice status. We do have other reports out there. And then they'll select PO, vendor ID, document locator number, just to see where it's at in the process. Sometimes vendors, instead of calling Anna's customer support team, will call our customers, the stations out there, and go, hey, I haven't been paid. What's going on with it? And so we give this to our customers to query these items up and show the real-time status of these particular invoices out there. We'll go ahead and close this out. I'm not sure what's in our test database. For our production database, again, we hold stuff for about 6 years. It used to be 6 years, 3 months. I heard that got cut down to 6 years. Anyone know that from commercial invoice NAR standards? We used to hold things 6 years, 3 months, and 1 day. And I heard that might have got reduced down to 6 years. I don't remember what the status is now. It's one of those invoice retention period things that we have to hold data for. So in the work list here, as a certifying official goes in, they see that they have this invoice out for certification. They can just double click on it. And what it's going to do is it's going to open up the image of the invoice in one window, and then they'll have the UI in the other window. Pega actually created this image of the invoice. This was an EDI invoice, so all we got was data elements associated with it. And my director would love just to show data elements to people, but they like to see paper stuff, right? That's what they've been used to for the past 20, 30 years, is seeing that paper. So we just basically took all those data elements and put it in a standard format so they can feel like they're looking at an image of an invoice again. So we can go ahead and minimize the image of the invoice. And then this is our main UI. So up at the top, again, we just kind of cover the metadata with the document locator number. We give them the invoice receipt date up there in the top middle part. Again, that's kind of when the clock starts ticking. So we want that to be front and center for them. Underneath that, we have potential duplicate invoices. No items in our test database, but I wanted to point this out. This is one of our business rules. We have what's called PIV badges. So we tell people, if you can remember the acronym PIV, for this one duplicate check in IPPS, we're looking for an exact match with purchase order, invoice number, and vendor ID. And then we'll display that to the certifying official as, hey, you have this invoice that you want to certify, but it looks like you received this exact same invoice before. It's in the system. It's already paid. If it was paid, we would give them a check number. If it was scheduled to pay, we would tell them the date it's scheduled to pay. But again, it's that certifying official's responsibility to take a look at it, make sure they're not certifying duplicate payments. That's one of about 4 duplicate check rules that we have as we're going through the IPPS system. You can go ahead and minimize that tab. Down below, recently, so VHA specifically has an electronic contract management system. We don't own that at the FSC, but now we're integrating with it. So they're sending us data, and we're trying to match up that data that they sent to us with the contract. So the only corresponding data that we have is the vendor sent us that obligation number, that purchase order number that they're billing on, and we look at our daily download for the contracts, and we find that match. If we do find a match, we're able to, again, show that certifying official without them having to log into a separate system. You know, here's your period of performance, here's your task order, here's that DUNS number. Make sure these things are open and, make sure you're certifying the invoice in accordance with some of these contract details. Eventually, we want them to open up their system to us just a little bit more so they can hyperlink directly to the contract image. But that'll be phase 2 of our integration with our other customers. Down below, this data will normally just be automatically populated for the individual based on how the vendor has billed the purchase order, so they'll see that come across. This is very specific to us, so we have the purchase order where the money resides. There could be a line number in the accounting system, and we give them edit checks along the way. So right now, excuse me, we're showing that there's $0 available. We tell people don't certify stuff when there's $0 available. They don't always listen to us. One of the things that we allow this to be an overridable message, and you're going to go, why do you allow them to override that? That's crazy. Well, that's because our VA core accounting system is like 30 years old. So it doesn't have real-time services. So we're actually downloading this obligation data on a daily basis, actually twice a day. And so it's as good as about 6 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 2 o'clock when we download it again. And so we had a couple customers say, well, it's in the accounting system, why aren't you letting me override? So we said, okay, you can override. That's good and bad. They create rejects in the system because of that. Recently, I think USDA decided to partner with us and help us replace our accounting system. So we're really looking forward to a working relationship with them so that we can actually have a modern accounting system that might have services and real-time data calls. And then we can easily adjust the business rules in our system as we go forward. So we give them visual warnings too. Not only does it say you have no funds, we give them the big red exclamation point over at the end. If they click OK, we're going to give them a pop-up box, excuse me, that says, hey, you don't have enough funding for this anyway. Are you sure you want to go forward? And they'll say yes. That's what they do. The certification accepts. So Srini clicked on the accept button. And that's kind of the pop-up box that will come up and give them a warning message. Now we have a refuse item, a refuse option right beside that. So our leadership is really focused on us returning these improper payments or improper invoices back to the vendors. So that might cause us to lock down certain metadata in the future. Right now, the certifying officials are able to edit that purchase order number. Maybe the vendor billed on the prior year number and they want to just type in the new purchase order number and just to get it paid. And leadership says, hey, that vendor sent in an improper invoice, you go make them bill correctly. Okay, so we're probably going to lock down this metadata, but we have to have a way to communicate that back to the vendor. So certifying officials have this option to refuse the invoice. Based on our analysis of what used to be hard refused and written into boxes, we were able to determine the most common reason for refusals that we list here, so they can pick one of these. If we have that vendor's email address on file, which we do a lot of times since they e-invoice us, we can actually just kick that back to them in an email saying, your invoice is being returned because of X. They still have the ability to choose other down at the bottom. Excuse me. And then type in a reason. Of course, that reason has to be in compliance with the Prompt Payment Act as well. They can't just type in, I don't have any money, so I'm not going to pay you. We see that. And then we will promptly return that back to the certifying officials. But it happens. It's a great customer experience. Are there any questions on anything that we've covered so far, just from a functionality type standpoint? Okay. I just wanted to point out too that FSC is, again, we have sprints ongoing with IPPS, kind of monthly sprints, about 3-week build outs for improvements, for either customer feedback that they say, hey, I would like to see this, I want to see that, can you do this, can you do that for us? And so we put these on a list, what we call a product backlog list, and if customers have great ideas that actually benefit the nation, then we're going to implement that. We're trying to get away from, again, the siloed organization where they go, hey, my station does this way, so can you put all this code in here to account for what I do, versus, hey, this is good for VA, and we have this enhancement that we want to see, or this report that we want to see. Those are the ones that we put on our product backlog, and we have sprints actually scheduled out till about March of next year at least, and then as customer requests come in, we try and fill that as best we can. So that is just kind of the high-level demo of what we do from our customer perspective. I hope you saw that the UI was fairly user-friendly, pretty intuitive. We've got some of that feedback again from the certifying official's perspective. They go in, they see what's assigned to them. Sometimes they actually don't even have to fill anything out because it's pre-populated, and if they agree with everything, they just click accept and move on. So that's kind of saved them a lot of time out there. It's created a positive customer experience for us at the FSC, made their jobs a little bit easier. And that's what we're all about. We want to make sure that the customer is taken care of and they can do their jobs quickly and efficiently. That's kind of all I had to show you. I'd be happy to, if there's any questions that you want to ask me now or find me later, I can be available at a later time.
Are there any questions? Okay, I'll take it up.
I was just wondering what was in computerized form before you started this Pega effort? That is, were your data already in databases, or did you have to do any conversion there?
So we had data in databases, in SQL databases. We did have to do some, image, the display of images, we've actually procured an IBM FileNet solution for our images. So technically the image store resides into FileNet, which we have a service integration with Pega and FileNet to display that image on screen. Before that we had a Global 360 product Excuse me. So we did have to convert about 10 million invoices from Global 360 into FileNet. Took a little bit of time, but we managed it.
Actually, that was a good question. I was going to ask the same thing, just for you to expound upon that. So my next question to you, Jeremy, is that how has using Pega made life better for you and the team and the application, especially you mentioned with some of the changes that, with government regulations and they make changes, how has it made life simpler for you guys?
Well, I mean, just from an efficiency standpoint, like we mentioned before, VA, when they were doing this on their own at 360 different sites, interest per million at 125, we were down last year to 17. We actually had a few months where we were just hitting about $8 interest per million. So we really want to dig into that and, see if we can analyze what really worked well, if it was just a trend that happened throughout the months. So things move much quickly through our automated business rules solutions. So it requires less FTE to look at things, and it gives us more time to concentrate on things if bad things were to happen, right? If there was a duplicate payment out there, how we can go collect those funds or do predictive analysis as well.
And you just mentioned one thing with duplicate payments. How is it using the system helping with that area?
So, between the business rules that we have, like I said, we have about four stops along the way through IPPS. We have one coming in at the door. If we find an exact match with like 4 different fields, we're automatically going to archive that invoice. And then we have like a really wide net match, which might gives us, we're trying to tweak that. Right now it gives us a lot of false positives. So we're trying to find that balance between, I want to catch all the duplicates, but I don't want to see all the false positives out there either. But it's a wide net right before payment file that our techs now have the time to actually kind of look through that to see if they can stop duplicates from happening, and again, creating those improper payments that we want to reduce.
Any other question? I'm asked. Okay, good. Okay.
Just, given the successes you've had thus far, either within FSC or the VA more broadly, just like how far along are you in terms of your journey with Pega systems? Just in terms of like what you've already built into the system versus other processes that, down the road you think could?
Yeah, so we're very familiar with Pega now since we started this in 2012. Excuse me. We've been live since 2014. We're much more iterative now with our customers to be able to develop quickly, show them UIs quickly, collaborate with them on the needs that they have. We do have other services at the FSC that are kind of .NET built, and those seem to take just a little bit longer to get that end result versus the quick customization that we have with the Pega platform. Pega seems to play well with all our databases too. So it's, like I said, it's a wonderful consumer of all this data based on the customer's need that we can just show them different things that are pertinent to them. So I feel, we're fairly experienced in the Pega product. And like I said, it's really impacted our agency, helping us to save quite a bit of money. I think in that first year we had a ROI of $1 million.
So one other question from me, Jeremy, is this. If you had to, I know you guys are a fee-for-service organization, but for the people here, from a lesson learned standpoint, from first starting out using Pega, moving from the kind of the manual processes that you were doing earlier, what would you share with everyone from a lessons learned standpoint of things to, if you had to do it all over again and the direction?
Tough question, Tori. You're fired. Man, lessons learned. There's a lot of lessons learned. So this was my first big project dealing with commercial operations. My director kind of took it on for the first 6 months and then basically said, yeah, don't screw this up and put us on the news. So lessons learned was, for me, I just had unfamiliarity with the software at first. right? So the more focused and the more familiar we got with the software, and again, we changed our culture and our environment that we were super collaborative with the developers versus kind of .NET, which is like the way we were before was here's all the requirements, hand it off, they code something, we look at it, we don't think they coded what we said, and there's just not that back and forth. Here, our culture is, the developers come, sit at your desk, do I have this right? Again, they can code some things very quickly and mock up UIs very quickly. So in like 20, 30 minutes, is this what you were thinking? Is this what you were thinking? And so seeing that iterative process and being very agile with it, that was the best lesson learned. Because before, when we started out, we were trying to write all these requirements. And, IPPS has a few thousand business rules in it. It's quite complicated on the back end and with all the databases that we adhere to, but just kind of piecemealing that out and structuring it out and working in collaborations with the developers helped us a lot more. And like I said, now we're in the phase of where we're just doing like 3-week sprints, and we can get a lot of code and a lot of things accomplished and a lot of enhancements pushed into production very quickly. Yes, sir.
So you gave us a number for FTEs. So can you kind of, I get the interface on the, on the station side. Can you talk about kind of the work that group does, and then where this data goes as far as your ERP accounting system, sort of like the end to end?
Sure. So just at a high level flow, right? We're going to take an invoice in either electronically or through OCR technology scanned. Electronic invoices, if it's clean, if it's under $2,500, that's a service that doesn't need to be certified or looked at. We have that authority from GAO Title 7. It can actually just come in and go to the pay file without anyone touching it, as long as it didn't stop at any of the business rule exceptions along the way. All the service invoices, and this is mostly for the service side. This is what they're signing off on, is Joe's Lawn Service and things of that nature. That invoice will come in, let's say again, electronically, if it's clean and doesn't stop at any of the our edit checks along the way. It's just going to go out here to the certification side. Station will approve or refuse it. When they approve it, it's actually going to go immediately to our transaction file service. And again, because VA's core accounting system is really old and antiquated, we're going to batch that up at night and run it in at about 8 o'clock. We do about 4,000-ish transactions a day into the core accounting system. From the front end, though, perspective, so, we actually put a lot of code in to handle the paper invoices, even though that's only about 10% of our volume. So things come in through our OCR technology. So the system, OCR is what it is, right? It's not 100% effective. So it picks the data fields that it thinks should be there, the right purchase order, the right tax ID, the right dollar amount. What we do is we actually put that through a double blind, what we call a double blind in our system. So we have a UI built that says, hey, you tech, you go fill in the purchase order, the vendor ID, the dollar amount, the invoice number that you think it should be. We don't tell them what the system had picked up already. If they type in the right values that agreed with OCR, it will then move on through the flow and go to like vendor selection to get the right tax ID. If they don't agree, it stops at another business rule. It says, hey, goes to another third party to check. Again, we separate the roles out too, so you can't edit your own edits. Basically, it has to go to you, then me, then Tori will figure out later where it goes. But then that's when we do show the data elements where they disagree, and a third party makes that, the third person makes that decision to keep it moving through the business rules. Again, we have all the edit checks for the Prompt Payment Act, which is required for us to build a pay file into our accounting system. Any other questions? All right, well, if you think of something, just holler at me later. I'll be around.